teaching at Nelson Mandela University. Today we had our first day of the symposium on dynamics of humanization. We're looking at the pedagogy of care and how that impacts assessment. The idea is to bring academics and students to really talk about assessment and to destigmatize assessment from being punitive and only looking at the end product, but making it part of learning.
I was intrigued by not just problematizing the issues of humanization in higher education, but also with the provision of practical steps of how we can humanize.
I really enjoyed the deliberations on what does it mean to humanize pedagogy.
First, maybe the general question is that how much do we draw from students' experiences in undertaking assessment?
As an educator and as a lifelong learner, I think it is imperative for us to be able to acknowledge where we need to improve.
What is happening on the ground so that whatever we put in place is fit for purpose for Mandela University.
So the presenters were spot on. They were talking about how we can implement humanizing pedagogy in assessment. They were talking about the pedagogy of care.
I was delivering a paper on beyond the paper and looking at the pedagogy of care. It was so amazing. The engagement was so amazing. I feel like we need to do more of this conference so that we can be able to have that deep understanding on the different stuff which are happening.
This requires experimentation amongst us. It requires support because we haven't done this at scale. It requires communicative interaction. It requires building of what the literature calls pedagogical publics.
I think I'm very grateful that I have attended the symposium so far and that it was organized.
My position impacting and how do I become a better person in helping others and in that navigating that relationship with others.
Because I think I've realized that a lot of the questions that we have and the discomforts that we sit with is not just with us, it's shared by others.
I think we've shared important insights. It's often been uncomfortable. We've had to look at ourselves and perhaps find ourselves wanting.
A humanizing pedagogy is not about fixing deficit students or communities or making them more human, which incidentally is generally meant to socialize them. What we see is that Freire never suggested that people were not already human, but rather that authoritarian education is dehumanizing in the ways it disempowers human beings and systematically prevents the expression of voice, of participation, and communal solidarity in the interest of conserving then a hierarchical colonizing system of wealth and power.
On that diagram, the one thing that stands out is the pink heart. But in the pink heart, you see a triangle. And it shows that at the heart of teaching is the interaction between the teacher, the student, and the content that we have to teach. It was an opportunity for us as academics and students to engage on what it means to be human.
Basically, my presentation entailed considering alternative assessment methods than traditional tests and examinations to provide a more diverse assessment environment where we can test students not only on their cognitive abilities but also on their practical abilities.
What are we going to do in that case? Where money actually dictates how we must behave as academic institutions.
My presentation was about the indispensable qualities of a progressive teacher. So I focused on what a progressive teacher is most likely to look like, sound like, and what they believe in.
When students are being dropped off by the shuttles in certain areas such as Mission Vale or Central, there are many times where they are the victims of crime. And so you see these students, they're not...
It's been such a fantastic time at the Humanizing Symposium, and I think especially as a young academic to hear from seasoned academics and what they actually view as humanizing pedagogy, but also just the different nuances and the branches that have actually arisen. For our keynote speaker to actually mention about institutional culture and how that needs to transform and change. And I've been here for 2 days of the conference, and it's been a really amazing time with some really courageous conversations happening, some very positive things, some very negative things, a lot of places where we can have growth.
I'm just curious, is there any time where you actually found yourself confronted with a challenge from a student where you identified with that challenge?
Prof's question triggered me so much because students are going through so much all the time. And even if you've never been through that experience, you cannot not relate.
As a student, I think it was very enlightening and it gave me a lot of hope.
So today's symposium and yesterday's symposium I think is very significant because it helps us to engage with this concept of humanizing pedagogy.
I believe with what we've seen, there is so much to be done in terms of understanding and also spreading the message throughout the entire university.
So I think as a student assistant, I'm honored, humbly impressed to be being able to attend these sessions so that I can kind of hold lecturers accountable.
Our faculty has been in the forefront of humanizing pedagogy over the years, and you'll see that from the presentations we embrace a humanizing philosophy in the faculty, within our modules and the work that we do.
I'm also thinking back on the session we just had last, where the lines came out that knowledge making or knowing is recognizing the humanity of others.
We need to celebrate this wonderful work, but we also need to take the opportunities that the challenges present us so that we can be future focused.
And it was very promising to see the number of people that were here, critical presentations that were presented.
It's going to grow, and I think we're going to grow it in decolonial and African ways as well, and we're going to come back next year with bigger things in terms of the assessment and authentic assessment.
It was not just a talk shop. It was all about being educationists and also touching on the various ontological dimensions.
Interesting comments that came out of my presentation by the audience was also AI-generated assessments. How would we deal with that? Should it pop up?
COVID-19 has really taught us a lot about the disparities between our students.
There are essences coming through. We're hearing them from colleagues overseas at other institutions and within our institution, showing us important ways that we are being successful, but more importantly, a path to where better success lies.
It gives us hope as students. I'm very happy that we were given a voice.
We should not see humanizing pedagogy as the silver bullet. We must invite ourselves to participate in the discussion.
I was part of a panel and we were a multidisciplinary panel talking exactly to that. What are the practices, but what are our challenges, with regard to humanizing pedagogy?
And our main argument is that we really need to involve the students, in this process, because assessment is not an event. It is a process, so it's a question of how then do we humanize that process and how do we humanize, the practices.
And how do we then assess and have those multi-modes of assessment to make sure that our students really learn and we as academics learn in that same process.